welcome to the Lovers in Heels Women in STEM Career webinar series. Today we have a wonderful guest joining us by the name of Dr. Samira Abdulai Hushie, and she is a general surgeon at the 37 Military Hospital in Ghana. My name is Larissa Kofi, and I'm the founder of Lovers in Heels. And my background is actually in engineering, and this is the reason behind starting Lovers in Heels. So Lovers in Heels is a platform I started to give a voice to African women in STEM. And so far we've highlighted over 100 women in STEM across the continent. And this year we're looking to highlight African women in STEM leading the fight against COVID-19. So you can check out the website. I will drop the link via the chat box, and feel free to reach out anytime you want to. So I'm going to read out Dr. Samira's very long bio. So Dr. Samira is a general surgeon at the 37 Military Hospital. She's a member of the West African College of Surgeons, a feat she achieved after years of rigorous studying and overcoming numerous challenges. Against all odds, she passed her membership exams as her first attempt, and she's the youngest resident and only female in her graduating class. She graduated from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology Medical School as the best student in surgery, and her passion in humanitarianism led her to join UNIFL. I think it's the Ghana military contingent on peacekeeping in Lebanon in 2015, providing medical support to soldiers as well as medical outreach to satellite communities in Lebanon. Dr. Samira is a strong believer in creating opportunities for girls to achieve their best in male-dominated fields, especially STEM fields. She's currently mentoring young female doctors to pursue careers in surgery despite the many bottlenecks hindering progression of women in the field. Her favorite pastime is reading a good book and unwinding with her family. Welcome, Dr. Samira. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And to all our participants joining us, thank you so much. Kindly mute your mics and turn off your videos, and feel free to leave any questions via the chat box. We will be answering your questions during the Q&A session. All right, so we will begin with our conversation. Dr. Samira, so how did it all start? What inspired you to pursue medicine in the first place?
Thank you. I think I've always, as long as I remember growing up, I'm sure there were a lot of children were always saying, I'll be a doctor when I grow up, especially when you go to see your pediatrician, and then he always gives you all the drugs I didn't like. So I decided to be a doctor so that I'll never have to take medication ever. But the point at which it became more serious for me was I was about 10 years old, and I remember there had been a road accident, and we were driving past, and so many people had stopped and nobody was helping. People were just, looking on and exclaiming. And my dad, who is also a very big, humanitarian, good Samaritan, he stopped and helped carry the injured people into the back of our vehicle. In all the craziness, they seemed to have forgotten we were still sitting in the car. And we were kids. They had to take I and my siblings out, and someone else took us home. But at that point, instead of being traumatized, I remember I wanted to help. I wanted to be part of the helping process. I wanted to help those people who were injured. And that was the turning point for me to really want to go not just into the medical field in general, but into more of a surgical practice where at that point I wasn't so clear, but as I grew up, it became clearer to me that that is what I wanted to do.
Great. So what were some of the challenges you faced during this period while pursuing this medical field?
Um, so across it starts mainly after junior high school. You go through senior high school, and you have to pursue science, and with passes mainly in biology and chemistry to be able to get through that. My basic and secondary training, I think, went relatively well. Um, and the first challenge I had was how long I would be in school for, because within 4 years, almost all of my mates would be done and be working, and you would still be in school. So I actually considered engineering, specifically aeronautic engineering, but I was afraid of heights and I hated flying, so that was out. And I went. So that was the first main challenge for me: how long I was going to be in school. In medical school, the second main challenge for me was, especially during our anatomy lessons, we had to do the dissections, and for us, we used human cadavers or dead bodies, and it was mentally, you had to be mentally and emotionally strong to go through that. I remember the first day we had to go into the dissection hall. I I was outside for about 3 hours just trying to gather the courage to go in. And it wasn't as bad as I thought. So that went well as well. Medical school is it's not just the textbooks. You read a lot, yes, but there's a lot of physical and mental fortitude that you need to be successful through medical school, especially during your clinical years. So after you finish with the clinical practice, you can score 100% in the written exam. But in Ghana, if you fail on the clinical exam, that is a fail. It doesn't matter how well you did during the written. So your bedside manner, how you treat your patients, how good you are taking a history, examining the patient, is always your priority. And you need to focus so much more on that. And if it's not for that, so many people will just go to school and read and produce, but it's not what it takes to be a good doctor. So the emphasis is more on your clinical skills. And it's a lot of late nights. I remember my gynecology rotation, obstetrics and gynecology in school. We called it catching babies, but I was delivering babies. And everybody had to deliver at least 10 babies and sign your logbook. Yes. And you would monitor a woman who is in labor for hours, like from morning till evening, and she won't have the baby. The minute you step outside to go grab supper or lunch, that baby will come out, and your friend who was just around would go catch that baby, and it was it was so crazy. So for me, I would learn during the day and take a nap, and then at 10 p.m. we would go to the ward. So from about 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. I don't sleep, and then you go and deliver all the babies at that time because everybody else is asleep. And that is how competitive it was, and how much initiative you had to take and how many sleepless nights it takes to get just through medical school. But once you graduate, it's quite worth it, I think.
Okay, from what you've described, it seems like it had been a very tough journey. Was there any points that you felt that you wanted to give up, and how did you overcome that?
Okay, thank you. From medical school, I think it was pretty, apart from the crazy, those ups and downs, which even though they were challenging, I think with a bit of support, it was easy to overcome them. Um, During my surgical training, after medical school, when I became a doctor and I was training to be a surgeon, there were quite a number of points which I did want to give up. Some of my rotations were very hectic, and very physically demanding, especially like my orthopedics rotation, because you are setting bones and pulling all these limbs, and I'm I was out of shape. So I really struggled. But about a month or two in, I adapted. The long hours, and that's why you are called a resident, because it means you are residing in the hospital. So your whole life, basically for about 4 years, you are going to be in the hospital. You can, if your social life is like takes a back seat, your family, and it was a very difficult. So there were a lot of moments during all of that that I did want to give up. I think there were so many things that made me or gave me the courage to continue. One of the main ones being my family and my spouse. My parents were always there for me. They would talk me through. There were times they even threatened to go and speak to my bosses if they had to, but they would encourage you at every point. And my husband was, have had my back, would listen to me and tell me, you can do this, you don't need to give up, it's going to pass. And there is an end point. So it's just for a period. So you can just go through that. Another reason for me, I knew that quitting was not just a personal decision for me. I started my surgical training with some other colleagues, and some of the men, a couple of them decided not to continue, and they were male. For them, it was a personal decision. They did not want to go through this anymore. But for me, it would have been sending a message to the other females that surgical training and being a female and having a family were not compatible. So it wasn't as easy as I just wanted to quit, because it was bigger than me at that time. I think the final thing that kept me going was also at that point I didn't have my kids yet, but I knew if I had children, I wanted them to grow up around strong women independent, strong women, especially if they were boys, who they are now. I want them to grow and have it be normal for them to have a woman in that field, and it's normal. There's nothing crazy about seeing a strong, powerful woman in a certain position. And all those factors and reasons came together and were what motivated me to keep on going.
Right. So as we already know, STEM fields are male dominated, and I believe that's the case in the medical field as well. And it was mentioned in your bio that you were the only female graduating female resident from the exams that you took. And I just wanted to find out from you what the experience has been like being one of the few female surgeons in Ghana, and what advice you have for young girls wanting to follow suit.
Thank you for that. So, yes, actually, so my class, medical school, I realized my classmates, the ratio, we actually had more female than male. So I think that's in Ghana, and it's been consistent, the past few years. And I think that's such a plus for us. However, as you move along, down the road, especially in the surgical disciplines, you realize that representation becomes, very, very, very low. So in my class, even though the male-female ratio was it was more than fair, but maybe about 55 to 45% ratio. I'm the only female in my class of 120 who went into surgery and is now a surgeon. Okay. So that shows how, it dwindles down as you come along. During my program, I think a lot of the experiences I had were the main things I saw were that there were a lot of social and cultural biases that are inherent, in our system. And it's sort of something that hinders and can be a bit of a frustration. I'll give some examples. There was one, I did the surgery on this female. She was young, she was about 19, she was in the university, so she was quite educated as well. I spoke to her before surgery, I prepared her for surgery. Before we went before the main operation in the theater, I spoke with her, reassured her. After the surgery, I was talking to her, in the clinic. How are you doing? Any complications? And I noticed she was a bit uncomfortable. So I asked her if she had any concerns. And she asks if she could see the doctor who actually her surgeon. And I asked, why do you think I was not your surgeon? And she thought I had my scrub nurse was male. So she by default assumed the male was a surgeon and I was her nurse. And it happens a lot. When it happens with males or those with the older generation, we tend to say, oh, it's maybe the cultural time and we are in a different generation. So to have somebody in this generation also have that, it just showed me how deep-seated these biases were running.
Right.
Another option is somebody who, another example, somebody came for plastic surgery. He had been referred to the plastic surgeon, and I was doing a plastic surgery rotation at the time. I was standing right by him, talking to him, explaining the procedure and everything. His child was hurt and needed some treatments. And he kept screaming, why have you sent this small, doctor or small lady? I want to see the plastic surgeon. And I'm like, I am your surgeon. There's this constant need to demand, you have to like demand and keep reminding people who you are. I think being female is one, and being young is also another, because everybody thinks you're a small and you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was quite frustrating, but I think with time it will get better, because it is getting better. It's not just your patients and your clients, even the other residents or your other interns or house officers. You would have a new batch of house officers or interns coming in, and you are their boss technically, but they walk in and see you and they assume you are either a nurse or one of the other interns, and they just talk to you and write you off from the get-go because it's not, they can't perceive at that time that you are their surgeon and you are going to be not teaching them or training them. So it's quite wide cross. Another main issue I saw or I noticed during this training and the experience I had was a lack of mentorship. There are so few of us, the female surgeons. Fortunately, if you go to Kolebu now, there are quite a number coming up. But when you compare the male to female ratio, it's so bad. I think in the US they have about 19%. That's for every 100 surgeons, 19 are female. In the UK, they had about 11 or so, and I think they are upping up to about 13%. We don't have figures in Ghana, but I think it is unfortunate that I can count, because I can say, oh, okay, in Kolebu, there is this person, that I can count them.
Right.
Yeah. And it's quite disheartening that way. So it's very difficult because you don't have anybody to look up to share experiences with you, to counsel you, not just about things, academics, but about personal things, because we are women, there's pregnancy, you're going to have children, you have a family, how are you balancing all of those things? And those also added to all those experiences I had. One really positive thing that I have to say is in my field, I feel there is a lot of progress being made. So, example, in my training, my bosses and my trainers were very, very amazing. They would shift, my rotations around if they had to. I remember when I was pregnant the first time, I was working throughout. I went home and started bleeding and I lost the kid. And they were very, very supportive. They gave me time off. And the next time I was pregnant, they were like, even if you haven't confirmed it and you just suspect it, let us know and we will do anything to support you. And they did. They would make sure I operated, if I didn't have to stay long hours, they won't let me scrap into surgeries, like 8, 12-hour surgeries when you're pregnant. They will let you do the shorter surgeries or put you in a rotation where you don't have to be in theater and on your feet as much.
Right.
And that sort of support was very encouraging. And it was actually one of the things I think that also motivated me to go on. Some of them went so far, they loaned me books from their personal libraries to help me to study. My boss would have me write essays every single week. He would always give me a topic to go study, write an essay, and present to him every week for about 3 years. So by the time of the exam, writing essays wasn't new to me.
Yeah.
But like I said, with all of this, in spite of all of this, you still would wish you had a female who could tell you, hey, you can plan your pregnancy this way. I mean, even things as simple as the sort of, should you do family planning? Should you have a child during residency? Should you wait till after residency? Should you have a child before? All those things you would wish you had a female. And that lack of representation and mentorship was glaringly obvious to me. I think those were the main things. But one other amazing thing that happened, I think when I passed my exam, like I said, for that exam, I was the only female who wrote the exam with the other men. And when we passed, we were called into an inner room. One of our professors, who is very, a woman, she walked up to me, not to the other guys, and she straightened my collar, she gave me a pat, and said, you have made us proud. At that time, I knew she wasn't talking about the other professors. She was talking about the other women, and it made it all worth it for me.
Nice, nice. I was about to say that I think visual representation is also very important because I, as an engineering student, I had very few role models to look up to. In fact, there was just one female in our department, and it was pretty intimidating. And that's the reason behind Lovers in Heels, provide role models for young, future STEM leaders to look up to these women, because it's very difficult to become something if you do not visualize it. So thank you for representing future surgeons of Ghana and Africa. I wanted to ask, in terms of professional development, aside what you studied in school, are there any opportunities or areas that young doctors should look into if they want to do well in the medical field?
I thank you for that. With medicine, and I'm a bit biased towards surgery, but even generally with medicine and even in surgery, the sky is the limit. The possibilities, I feel, are endless for career development. A lot of people think when you talk of surgeons, we are limited to the theater or your clinic or the emergency or the ward. But there are so many other fields that you can explore. So aside from the different specializations you can go into, like you can go into orthopedics, trauma, pediatrics, even with that, you can still go ahead and subspecialize. So you can be an orthopedic surgeon and not work all the bones, just the foot or just the ankle or just the pelvic bones. So there's that. And that's even if you want to remain in that stream. Now we are going into minimally invasive surgeries. We are talking about endoscopic procedure. There's robotics coming up and all these interventions. So hopefully the engineers will not take over. But like all these are coming together. So there are all these new branches that are being created. So the traditional definition of medicine and various specializations in medicines have broadened so much. Aside from that, you can go into academia. You can teach, there's research. You can go into public health. You can go into clinical research, and all those are avenues. You can go into law and ethics, which is also very important with all the malpractice suits we are having now.
Yeah.
And finally, there's with surgery, there's this new drive now, which is what we call global surgery. And the aim of it is we realized that we are trying to equalize the surgical practice and access to surgery across the globe so that there's a standard of care, because you would see maybe especially in Africa, the sort of procedures, the sort of access, the sort of things that can be done outside, a lot of us are not able to access that type of care. And we have realized that some of the surgical emergencies are becoming public health, issues. It's not just malaria, it's not just hypertension. Now trauma, that's road traffic accidents, are like the second or one of the leading causes of death aside from, and they've overtaken all these communicable diseases. So global surgery is a very essential aspect now, and you can go into that. You go outside and you try to bring what is being done to the front in terms of public health, engineering, law, and then law and the policy making as well. So there are so many options, so many for all my ladies out there who want to come in.
Great, great. So I think we are getting towards Q&A time. And so I would encourage our participants to start sharing their questions via the chat box. But one last question before we begin Q&A. I wanted to find out from you, I know that you've been creating career opportunities for young women who want to enter the medical field. How are you doing this, if you can share?
Thank you. I think I mentioned earlier before, and it's very obvious that mentorship and representation is very important. If we have more females at the top, we have more female heads of units, more female physicians, more female surgeons. We can create an environment, we can make laws, we can pass the rules and write, policies that favor women and would encourage more women to be in the practice. For me, it's why I'm very passionate about mentorship and teaching. So when I have my junior doctors, my house officers come in, anyone who is, I try to poach a lot of them into surgery. Not everybody is interested, but once you have the interest, I take you under my wing, and I'm there, like, not just teaching you academically. I offer tutorials to them in terms of academics. I give them textbooks if they need to, access to your books if they need to. And you also have to be there for them to discuss all these things. Some of them won't worry, I want to have a child, I want to get married, how would that affect my training? And they have somebody they can talk to who can encourage them or tell them the pros and cons of, everything, especially as someone who has gone through it. And it's not only, for those who have had at that point, but I also teach the undergraduate classes as well. So those in medical school, or those who have finished medical school and want to come and start medical, practicing as doctors, I teach those classes as well. And the aim is to to get them at an early stage and encourage more of them to come, because it's like I said during my medical school, how there are so many females, and as you move along the line, you realize so many of them move out of the space. So the aim is that you get them at that stage and encourage as many of them as possible to enter into the field. So for now, that's what we are doing, hopefully to expand, and we'll have more mentees and more people to train.
Yeah. Dr. Samira, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story with us. I think we are having questions being submitted, so I will begin reading them out. Okay, this is a comment from Dr. Kisi. I left out the first name because I don't want to butcher your name. So she says, what an amazing story to share and truly motivational. I'm getting chills watching Dr. Samira get emotional when telling the story of how another female uplifted her. That was really inspiring. We have a comment from Ades. She says, excellent presentation, Samira. Okay, now we have a question from Becca George. She's asking, what would you encourage the women that do not have degrees or experience to do to have a successful career in STEM? Is experience and crash or short courses enough, in your opinion?
I think it depends on the field of practice you want to go into. I think, like I said before, I mentioned how, like with our medical school, the emphasis is not on just the academia, but on clinical practice. So now we have people who are, if you want to come into medicine, unfortunately, they would require you to have the medical degree. But you don't even necessarily, now you don't have to start from the 7 years or 6 years medical school that other people did. So now we have like a training for mature, so those who have maybe diplomas or nurses or pharmacists, physician assistants, anybody with a science background who wants to come into medical school, you can go in, and then I think it's an abbreviated course now. So it's about 4 years instead of the 6 years. And after which you are able to become a doctor after writing your licensing exam. But that's coming from the field of medicine. But in general, I think a lot of us working with other doctors and coming into contact with other like professionals, engineers, and scientists, women in the science field, I think we've come to realize that experience counts so much more than just what we call the paper. In medicine, there's something we say that learn the skill, the paper would come later. So there are people who can go and maybe write an exam and are very good at taking exams, and they may pass, but they are not the best surgeons. The best surgeons, the best physicians are the ones who have that experience and can look at a patient from 10 miles away and make a diagnosis and tell you, yes, because I've seen this 10 times and I can do this. He can run into a complication in the theater and he can manage the complication better than the person who has probably passed an exam and doesn't have the experience. So experience is always going to be the main thing for me. The paper, yes, would come later. That's my opinion.
Okay. Asante wants to know, I want to know who inspires you.
Oh. So the professor who actually came and congratulated me is, she's called Prof. Hushie, and she's a pediatric surgeon at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. She's an amazing, amazing, amazing woman. Apart from being so intelligent, she's a family woman. I know people who were mates with some of her daughters in Wesley Girls School, and she's so compassionate, and the empathy she has for the children that she treats. She's such an inspiration, and when you meet her, you just want to be like her. There are so many other women I think who inspired me, but not necessarily even in the field of medicine. So there was one of the former directors at the British Council, Liliana, whom I met, and that woman she's super. She's just super. I enjoy talking to her so much. She's always encouraging me. She's a go-getter. She gets things done. She's just an inspiration, and I am so glad I met her because she really inspired me to believe that women could be in any space they wanted to be in. Yes.
Great. Derek Afriye is asking, he says, fantastic presentation, Samira. Is there any other reason why there are very few female surgeons besides the points about lacking female mentors?
There are quite a number. Hopefully when this is loaded up, I would link up some studies that have actually been done. So it's not just my personal experiences. There have been studies done in the US and in Europe, and I think there was one I saw that was done in Africa. And a lot of it, aside from, the social and cultural factors, there's also the timing of the program. Surgery is quite a long training. It's very, very demanding. So it's during the time you are training, it literally takes over your life. And if you want to have a family, it's a very tough balance. So a lot of women shy away from that. Another one is, like I said, if you want to have a family, especially dealing with pregnancy issues whilst you are having your residency, it's very, very difficult. So there was one, I remember my first pregnancy that I carried to term. during the second trimester, I was passing out. Like I would be operating and I would just drop. And I would leave the poor patient on the table for another surgeon to take over. And things like that, would just prevent a lot of more women coming in, because it's very difficult physically on your body and then mentally and emotionally. Also, it depends on like the support structures you have. If you are fortunate enough and you have like your parents, your family who can be there for you. If you have a child, they can take the child for you, help you out at home. You have a spouse who is understanding and who would support you. It comes in, all those things matter. I remember there were times I was in theater operating till about 2 a.m. and I would be scared to drive home alone. Before I got married, I would just sleep in the hospital because I mean, drive home at 2 a.m. You have to be back by 7 in the morning. So I would just sleep in the hospital. So I always had a bag with a toothbrush, spare clothes, shoes, like everything, just for that. But when I got married, sometimes I would call my husband and he would have to drive and come pick me up from work, and there are so many things I feel, and they are very real for a lot of women and need to be addressed. But like I was saying, when you actually see somebody go through all of those and you see the person come out on top at the end, it makes it real, and it makes it, you can appreciate that I can do this because someone has broken the glass ceiling for you, so you can go through. And that is our aim, being mentors now, to make room, or to make things easier for more of the ladies to be able to come through.
Great. Okay, Katie Humphrey says, well done, Samira. Excellent presentation. Keep up the good work. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
Gloria Setra says, great presentation, Dr. Samira. Is there any issue of wage gap between male and female surgeons? Have you ever been in a situation where you found out you were being underpaid than your male colleagues?
So in Ghana, I think that's something that's actually very awesome. We don't have a wage gap. Everyone is paid the same across board. So I've never had to deal with that. And it's not even just surgeons, it's medicine in general. Every doctor is paid the same in Ghana.
Okay. Ade says, miscarriage is a sensitive topic for many women, yet emotionally destructive women. How did you manage communicating to male supervisors and colleagues?
It is very sensitive and very emotional. So I didn't tell everybody. A lot of them I probably still don't know that happened. But I had to tell the head of the training unit and my immediate supervisor, because when it happened, I needed to get some scans done, to make sure it wasn't an incomplete miscarriage. And so I had to talk to him. I thought I was being very brave. I cried at home, dealt with it, and decided I was going to work full, ready to do this. And I remember when I told him, I broke down in the clinic. I broke down crying again. And he looked at me and he told me, look, it's happened. It's unfortunate it happened, but take all the time you need and recover. When you come back, we'll just restart everything. If you even have any inclination or any suspicion that you might be pregnant, let me know and I will do whatever I need to do to help you. And that was just very amazing for me. I know it's not everyone who has that opportunity. So I was given about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks of work to heal, not just physically, but emotionally, and come back. And truly, when I got pregnant again, they were very supportive. We didn't tell anybody. It was just about 2 or 3 of them who knew, but they came in to protect me. And that was very helpful for me.
That's good. That's good to know. Theresa Swansea is asking, is coaching also done at the senior high school for young girls, maybe during career fairs?
When I was in high school, they organized some of these career fairs for us in Achimota. I know there are organizations now who do that and go out to the high schools and then do career counseling, especially for the women. I've not had the opportunity to do that yet, but hopefully I hope to be able to do that in addition to just not just the undergraduates teaching the undergrads, but there are organizations in Ghana. I don't know their names offhand, but I remember when I was in school, some of them actually also came and spoke to us. So there are organizations here in Ghana who do that. Yeah.
Okay. I think Thelma has a question. She's asking, she's saying, thank you, Dr. Samira. If one wants to pursue and be mentored in the field of surgery, do you suggest we do our housemanship and the rest under females?
Sorry, the line broke a bit. After she said, do you suggest that you do housemanship and...
She's asking, do you suggest we do our housemanship and the rest under females?
Oh, not necessarily. So the housemanship is compulsory, and it's a 6-month rotation in each department. You might not have that many females to work under, depending on the institution you work in, because like I said, there are not that many of us. If you are fortunate and you have some you work under, they might take you under the wing and also act as mentors. But what you can do is, I have a colleague who is working at the AU, and we are hoping, it's not yet done, but we are hoping to start a sort of association of women surgeons in Africa. So because there's one in the UK, the Royal College, they have an association, and they have, women in training, women in house job as members of that association. So you don't need to be a full-blown surgeon or completed your surgical training to be on the board. So we are hoping to be able to have that. There's a Pan-African Association of Surgeons, and we are trying to hopefully have a branch of that association be for the women. And hopefully we would have contacts there so that if you want to be a female surgeon, you can reach out to any of them when you go on that. It's actually in the work, so hopefully we'll get it up and running soon and would let you know.
Okay. I think that's it with the questions. I have a question of my own. Okay. If no one is going to submit any more questions. So I wanted to find out, I'm a mom of one, you're a mom of two. How are you balancing it all out? I know it's really tough. It's really, really tough, but you're doing it with two kids. How are you doing it, Samira?
A lot of time management, a lot of support, and a lot of patience.
Yes, definitely a lot of patience.
Yeah. I say the time management because there was this the inspirational quote I saw on the women in surgeons, the Royal College one, and it said, I don't like when they say I need to have a work-life balance, because then it means I need to sacrifice one for the other to be okay. And I'm paraphrasing, and it says I'm a better surgeon because I am a wife and mother, and I'm a better wife and mother because I am a surgeon. And I realized that it's true. When I am home, the time I have to be home, I give 110% to them. And then when I am at work, I am 110% at work. So that I don't need to sacrifice one thing for the other. I don't know if it's making sense. If I'm able, because you only have 24 hours in a day, you only have 7 days in a week. It's either, people make it look like it's either you're cutting corners at work to have time with your kids, or you are sacrificing the time with your kids to be at work. But if you are able to create an avenue where, so if I'm on duty, I finish my shift and maybe I'm in clinic, I close at maybe 1 or 2 p.m. that day. I make the time, I make sure I try to use the opportunity to go pick the kids up from school. When I come home, I am with them like completely, so that when I am at work, I am able to be the best that I am at work and not have to cut corners at work. The support also is so essential. My parents, have you need them to babysit. My sister is literally living with me now as a full-time babysitter. And you need that support. It's very difficult if you don't have um, that kind of support. Um, I really feel for the colleague females who don't have that kind of support and are struggling. And now I know there's nannies who can help, but it's not the same. It's not the same, and it's very difficult.
Okay. We'll take two more questions and wrap it up. Teresa Shawa is asking, I am a clinical medical medicine student and I will be writing my final exam in December, obtaining a diploma. How would you help me to become an obstetrician? If there is a way, do I have to travel to Ghana for school? Thanks for the awesome presentation.
Yes. Could you let me know which country she's in?
Teresa, can you let us know what country you're from?
Yes. So if she's within the West Africa space, yes.
In the meantime, we have a question from Thelma. She's asking, please don't you get drained or tired?
I do. I do get very tired. There are days when you wake up and you have to go to work. You just don't have the energy to get out. You're like, I can't do this again. But I think one thing is that if you have passion for what you do, then it's less of a job. I love surgery. I love what I do. When I am in the theater and all the noises are the beep beeps and all the it just I love it so much. And I think that passion helps. So when you get weary, it gives you motivation to move on. Also, I am not averse to taking a break when you need to. I mean, I'm a doctor, so I would advise you listen to your body.
Yeah.
There are times when you are breaking down. You can have an emotional breakdown. Now we have all these chronic fatigue syndromes. So you listen to your body. When your body tells you you need a rest, you can go to another doctor, tell them, I am not well, I need a break. You can take an excuse duty if you need to take about 2-3 days off work, rest, and then you get back into it when you need to.
Okay. Teresa responded, she's from Zambia.
She's from Zambia. Okay, I've actually worked with some doctors from Southern Africa, but she was doing the house job in Ghana. But I think in Southern Africa, they also have a collegiate exam that they write in common. So she can write the exam and do her training, not necessarily only in Zambia, but I think she can do in South Africa or other places. But even after her exam, if she wants to come to Ghana, she can also come and do it in Ghana. For obstetrics and gynecology, for Ghana and the West Africa bloc, you need to do the 2 years of the housemanship training. After that, you write an exam, I think a primary exam, to enter into the specialization. So once she's written that exam and she passes, then she would be put into the program. I think obstetrics and gynecology is also, for the first part, it's about 2.5 to 3 years that they do. After that, you can do a subspecialize in another field. So I don't think she doesn't necessarily have to come to Ghana. The exams are, we are hoping to have like a unified, like an exam where what you can write an exam in Ghana and practice in Ethiopia, or practice in South Africa, practice in Zambia. We have not yet come all together. So West Africa has a block, Eastern Africa has a block, and then Southern Africa has a block. So she can read up on those blocks. But then within the various colleges, there's a way to just move across quite easily.
We have come to the end of the Q&A session. Thank you everyone for joining us and for submitting your questions. If you have further questions, you can send us an email at info@levelsinheels.com. I have shared it on the chat box. Special thank you to Dr. Samira for making it. I always say that STEM fields are difficult, but it's even harder for women pursuing these fields. And not only do we have to deal with being women in these fields, we also have to deal with being young or anything age related, you know. And it's quite sad, but it's also great that we have role models like you to look up to. And we're going to create we're going to provide a lot more of these women on the platform to inspire future STEM leaders. So thank you so much for your time. We wish you all the best. We send a lot of love to your support system, and we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you for joining us. And for everyone wondering what Levels in Heels is about, you can visit our website, levelsinheels.com. I'm sharing the link via the chat box. This year, we are highlighting African women in STEM leading the fight against COVID-19. So please check out the website and submit anyone you know who is fighting the battle against COVID-19. So thank you once again for joining us. Until the next webinar, goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.